Be delusional. For men to be vulnerable, that's the truth for you. Men, you're doing a disservice if you're not getting help for yourself. I'm having a hard time sleeping. I'm always on edge. Am I going to be okay?
Hi there. Welcome. I'm Soleiman Valor. I'm here with another podcast guest by the name of Paulo Sosa. He is a hypnotist and a transformation coach. So we're going to dive into a little bit about what hypnosis is, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his life experience as to how he's got here. And then, as always, we're going to have Paulo take us through a nice, fun exercise and see where we go from there. So welcome, Paulo.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about what you do, or like, how did you get to where you are, what you do, and how you got there?
Sure. Well, my journey started as figuring out, we go back to 2014, and I had just came back from Afghanistan. And what I was doing out there, I was medical. So any people that were wounded would come into the hospital, and they would come to their trauma bay and pretty much do our best to keep them alive. And one thing I can say out there is, it gets pretty normalized, the things that we see. People hurt, people wounded, people die. And then we go back to work.
Yeah.
As just like a normal day. That's just part of the job, right? And so you get conditioned of being out there, and then you come back home, and then it's not like that anymore. And then you're kind of, in a way, seeking that. So again, you're not used to just normal, everyday problems, right? You're looking for that kind of excitement. And it's just an uncomfortable place to be when you're sitting with, your normal friends, the ones that you didn't go out there with, and trying to relax and trying not to think, okay, if something happens, where do I escape? Your minds are clicking different. And, the military does what they can to help you with therapy. And so, I go and see a therapist, but we're not clicking. I'm going into the office, and she's there on her computer and, hearing me out, but don't really have any feedback, answering the phone at the same time as our session, and I'm like, I'm not doing that well. I'm having a hard time sleeping. I'm always on edge. My relationships around me I feel distant. And so on my own, I researched, well, what else can I do? I had no idea about, meditating, no mindfulness, no nothing. It was just, the military is like either medication, or you come and see a psychiatrist who really is not paying attention to you. So I stumbled upon hypnotherapy. And I said, okay, well, I'll try this out. Find out it's not usually a thing that's paid for by insurance. So it's something that I had to pay out of pocket for myself. And I said, well, but if this is going to really help me, I'm going to do it. And so I started having sessions, and I started feeling a lot better. So 2014, and then we'll go to 2024, is when I started thinking, okay, well, I want to help people mentally, right? And in hypnotherapy, I thought you had to have a license. I thought you had to have a degree, which you don't. You take a course and you become certified. So that's the difference between like a licensed therapist, and then not all states in the United States like the word hypnotherapy, but you're a certified hypnotist.
Got it.
There is a board that approves of your certification, but and what drove me to that point was in the late of 2023, I was arrested. Talk a little bit about it. It was being at the wrong place at the wrong time. And now I find myself, I really have to fight for my freedom because I was looking at a possible 10-year sentence.
Wow.
And, you know, I was given a public defender at first, and I just didn't have all that trust in the public defender. And I remember her giving me an email and around 9 o'clock at night, and I couldn't sleep. And I just went into this anxiety mode, and I said, okay, well, I know there's one thing, right? When a body's in stress, you cannot be creative. So I had to pull myself out of it. And by that time, I did learn things as like mindfulness and meditation. I said, okay, well, what other options do I have? So I went and sought a criminal defense lawyer, which costs a bit of money. But I was in limbo for a whole year. So if I took like 2024, it was all about, just trying to figure out, am I going to be okay? And I had stopped working from the time that I got arrested. And I spent a good half of the year just figuring out, what am I going to do next? And I knew that this time in my life, I was really learning a lot about myself. And I wanted to be this time to be, well, how am I learning about myself? How am I going to benefit myself, and how am I going to benefit others? How do I make this story a motivation or inspiration for others to not to give up on themselves? Because I knew one thing, no matter what, someone can take away your freedom physically, but they can't do it mentally. So whether I was going to go there and spend time in prison or not, I knew that I had to be okay in here before that happens.
Yeah.
I mean, I do believe that there were things spiritually that happened for me that allowed me to not go there, because as of this month is my last day of probation, and then
Wow.
I'm completely done with that chapter of my life.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so I mean that was my whole goal of being a coach, of being a hypnotist. Is there are patterns that we hold on to from childhood, right? There's a child in all of us. There's a 7-year-old child running the show as an adult, unless we take the necessary steps to reprogram that part of our brain, the subconscious mind, because it runs on patterns. It gets comfortable with what we're used to.
Yeah.
And, for some reason, we keep going back to what's comfortable. If we grew up in a chaotic household, if we watched our parents argue all the time, if we learned how to love, not in the right way as adults, we find that comfort spot, and it really takes some work and effort to, shift your brain. And I think that along with other tools, but hypnotherapy can get you pretty quick results.
Yeah. Can you give the sort of like listeners an example of specifically directed around sort of men's identity or men's mental state? Like, what are some of the things that you've noticed where you were and the shift that hypnotherapy helped you with?
Mm-hmm. I could say vulnerability I think it's hard for men to be vulnerable. I think it's hard for them to recognize or even acknowledge that they're carrying wounds and that it's hard for them to open up. Like, I can give an example with my dad. My dad, on some very rare occasions, he will open up about how he felt about his relationship with his parents when he was a kid. And what my dad did for his career, he was a police officer. And he's seen a lot. And, when you get him talking, you can see it in his eyes. He just starts watering. His eye starts watering.
Yeah.
And you can tell there's some wounds in there. There's some pain. Him and my mom went through a divorce back in the year 2000, and that really took a toll on him. And the way I think men are used to dealing with it, or maybe shown from their dad, was, you just have to toughen up. You can't show weakness. And I mean, everybody deserves to be happy. And, if you look on a vibrational chart, fear is at the bottom. I think men actually have that fear if they start opening up, if they say what's on their mind, if they share their emotions, that they're going to be looked at different. They're going to say, well, you're not man enough, or, usually that's maybe considered the woman's role is to open up and share her feelings, and then he's there to provide a safe space. But that needs to be both ways. I think men carry a lot on their shoulders. Women do too, but I think a lot of, emotional, mental health caters to a lot of women. But I think now in modern times, I've seen a lot more about men's health and, just mental health in general. So, my dad is in his mid 60s now, and just like a couple of years ago, started getting help in mental health. And I had been telling him for a while, like, why don't you go, and talk to somebody? And he's a veteran himself, and he got connected with the VA. And it wasn't until he was starting to seek, he didn't have a disability rating. And not until he started seeking, though, how can I do that? They said, well, we recommend that you go and see a therapist. And, lo and behold, he told me about it, and he's like, I feel a lot better. I feel a lot better that I'm just even able to have a safe space to talk about it, you know. And there's things that he probably won't be able to share with me, but I'm happy for him, and I think men, you're doing a disservice if you're not getting help for yourself.
Yeah, I ditto that. Yeah, it's interesting that you share that about your father, his sort of like inability to show his emotion, or willingness to want to share his vulnerability and his emotions. For me, it's actually the reverse. In my upbringing, my dad passed away when I was really young, but he was the one that was more of the emotional. Like, he showed more of his emotion and more of his affection and more of his range of emotions. And my mom has been the one that's has a really hard time expressing her. It's not necessarily expressing her, like, she's really easily able to express her like range of emotions, but when it comes to like showing that nuanced vulnerability of her sadness or her grief, like, she has a really hard time going there. She just sort of holds it back. And so that's what I learned from, where it's like, wait a minute, my dad was very easily able to express his emotions, but my mom isn't. So I guess the question for me, the curiosity is, why do you think that men, like we're all emotional beings, men, women, right? Why do you think that we've gotten to a place where we think that expressing our emotions or our vulnerability isn't a good thing? Like, why do you think that came about? Like, just out of your own sort of experience?
I mean, I think it goes back into even, maybe the caveman days where the man's job was to make sure that he provided a roof and he went and hunted and got the food. And the woman, stayed with the children. And I think, women are very in tune. I do believe that women are more closer to enlightenment than men are. Men have more learning and growing to do than women, but I think just the way our society has evolved, until the man is the one to go out there and work, and the women are like the foundation. The women they take care of the needs of the kids, the children's needs. They're more emotionally in tune to what the children need and what they. I think the woman's job is like telling the man, this is what is needed, and he's the doer, and he'll do it because he's told to, maybe not because there's really not an emotion behind it. Doing something because it's asked, not so much because maybe there's emotion, like I'm doing it because it's not because he doesn't love or he doesn't care. It's he's just used to doing. He's the doer.
Yeah.
And I think maybe men have an easier time opening up to other men. Other than, maybe it's just, because that's, he's supposed to be the brave one, the tough one, right, at home. And it's, if the man shows the emotions, I think they do want to be someone solid for the woman in the relationship. But yeah, I think it goes back to early times. I mean, what their role was. Now I actually think it's more even. I think now women are more in the work field, and I know men personally that are home with the children. So I think there's more of a balance, and I think with social media, people are now becoming more aware of mental health and things like mindfulness, and men, it's okay to share and express your emotions. There's really good books out there right now just talking about that. So
yeah, I think we're living in quite great times, in a sense of where the desire to connect to the depth of who we are, at least for me, I'm seeing it more and more with my men's groups, with a lot of the guys that I see in my community, or my friends from different walks of life. I think there is a desire to find their sense of self more, whether it's emotional or mental. There is more of a curiosity of, like, who am I? Like, how am I made up? And also the idea behind being the breadwinner, or I think you're right. I'm seeing that it's more equal these days, that there's more and more, speaking about like a heterosexual relationship, there's more men and women who both are working in the household. And I think the thing that I love about the masculine feminine energy, or the idea of masculine feminine energy, is that we all have both, right? The question is, which one's more pronounced, right? In is it more pronounced in the man or is it more pronounced in the woman, and which one? And so I think that, like, for instance, I know that a lot of women that I see in my sphere of influence or in my life, I see them wanting to step into their feminine, but they're not feeling safe in some ways, right? So, yeah. So I'll just leave it at that and see what.
Well,
you
that's
have to
what
say
I
about
was
that.
going to ask about your parents. You say your dad was emotional, your mom was kind of like reserved back. But how did they? I guess how were they there for each other? Like when your dad, he obviously had to feel safe to open up. Maybe your mom didn't. Was it your dad that? How did he react when she got emotional? Like how were they there for each other?
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. So I think that my mom grew into her stiffness when my father passed away. I do think that when I see in the pictures, my mom was very sort of flowy and feminine, and my dad was able to really hold the sort of, I would say, like the nurturing masculine whenever needed for my mom and hold the pillar. But he was also very emotional, like would easily able to like express his like joy and frustration and anger and like tap into that. So that's the interesting thing for me, is that when we talk about like the idea of a masculine man, I think that we're talking like a very specific, narrow lens of it in today's society as to what we think of what a masculine man needs to look like. And I think that we've sort of skewed that idea that, oh, a masculine man is directive and he's purpose-driven and XYZ. And I think that we're so much more than that. There's so much more to the masculine identity that we've sort of like co-opted it as to know it's this one single linear line that you need to follow. And
Yeah, and it depends on what culture you're from too. Like you said, I mean, men are very emotional beings, like everyone is, but I think a lot of it's gone into anger and frustration. Like, my dad is the closest male model in my life, right? So when we think about masculine and feminine, we think about our parents, and my dad hates the thought of being disrespected. Hates it. Like, he thinks somebody's looking at him the wrong way or someone caught him off. And, sometimes he can let it ruin the moment or ruin his day. And he won't let it go. And, if I'm there, I'm like, I try to tell him, I said, well, think about another perspective. If this person cut you off, maybe they're on their way to the hospital because someone in their family's dying. Like, you don't know. It's like, just think of another alternative to just taking things so personal. So, yeah, I mean, your parents could teach you a lot. They can teach you, the healthy things you want to hold on to, and, maybe the things that you don't want for yourself.
absolutely. Speaking about anger, what are some other sort of like ways that you've seen that hypnotherapy can help men in terms of, what would give the viewers like a couple more examples so they can be like, oh yeah, I want to try hypnotherapy?
Oh, there's so many. I was on another podcast and somebody asked me, what's the number one thing you think that somebody comes to you for?
Yeah.
And really, I think it all comes down to our confidence and how we see ourselves, our self-esteem, how we talk to ourselves. And then there's like, okay, well, it resulted in this. It resulted in, gaining a lot of weight, smoking, procrastination, money blocks. Like, it resulted in these other things, so that when somebody comes to me, it's like, I have this issue. What do I do about it? But then, after talking to them for about an hour, then they realize it's even deeper than that. So, yeah, confidence is huge. It's that negative self-talk, it's thinking you're not good enough. You're not good enough to be healthy. You're not good enough to be wealthy. You're not good enough, in general. So, yeah, I don't know how many times somebody's come to me and I said, I thought I was coming to you for this.
Yeah.
But actually it's how confident I am, how I talk about myself, thinking that I'm worthy of having my vision, because we get very detailed in what does your life look like, right? So let's say somebody wanted to come in and they wanted to stop smoking. Well, I want to be very conscious of the language that I use, and it's not in the negative. So I'm not going to say in the hypnosis recording, you are not a smoker, because the subconscious mind doesn't understand the no and the not. If I say, don't think of a red car, your mind goes to red car first before it's, oh yeah, you told me not to.
Yeah.
So what does your life look like, as a non-smoker? Okay, well, I smell good. My wife compliments me on my breath. I'm kissing a lot more. My kids want to be around me and play with me. Everything that comes along with smoking, let's change that. And also let's add, anything else. What does your life look like if you were to think your most happiest day? What does that look like? Your kids are healthy. You have a great relationship. You're living, in a mansion. Like, people get really detailed on what their life looks like. So yes, it can get very specific, but also, in a broader lens, what does your life look like?
Yeah, that's great. If you were to, you mentioned some of the things that people thought they're coming to you with. There's actually two curiosities right now with what you shared. The first one is the thing that you shared about, like, they come to you for something, they think it's that, but actually it's something else, right? That they actually work on. That's the first curiosity. And then the second curiosity is, how does a guy know? Because I had this trouble. How does a guy know that he is not feeling worthy, self-confident? Because from my experience, I didn't know I wasn't feeling I didn't know I was not worthy of who I was. I thought that's just how I was in life, until I took all these programs and trainings, realizing, oh, I have a lot of self-doubt. I have a lot of self-talk. I have a lot of self-doubt. So how does a guy actually, and you can take whichever one you want to answer first.
Okay, so we go in this last question you asked. It's a part of the journey, right? So if something's not going right in your life, you want to understand why, then you start asking questions. You start Googling, you start going on YouTube, right? It's not very apparent, and it wasn't for me either. It wasn't like, oh yeah, I always tell myself I'm stupid and I'm not, I'm not smart, or, what are the patterns in my life? That's what I'm used to. My parents weren't, millionaires. I'm not going to be either. Both of my parents have been married and divorced several times. So am I, so that you're used to what you're used to. And it really takes you to want to do the work, find a book, get a mentor, get a coach, do some meditation. Like, those answers will start. You will get more clear on what is your block. Because there's obviously a block if you're not happy with the way your life looks like.
Totally.
Or if you're just not happy, like, there's obvious, because if you were happy, then that you're good enough. I have a good, on my YouTube, when I started it, I was like, what's going to catch people's attention?
Yeah.
What's going to, like, like, oh, wait, let me look into this more. And it was be delusional. Be so delusional. You think of the most successful people out there, and then what we look at, as success, but, they're very delusional about themselves. If you ever, like, the other day, I was with my friend and his uncle lost a lot of weight. And he looks pretty good. I remember when he maybe lost, I think, 100 pounds.
Yeah.
And he was standing in the mirror and he was taking pictures of himself. And my friend was like, look at him. He's laughing at him. Like, look at him. He's, taking pictures of himself. I said, that's amazing. That's awesome. He feels so good about himself.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, he's delusional about himself. And I'm like, yeah, he is. He's very happy.
Yeah.
And like we want to encourage other people. We should be encouraging others when they're doing well, when they're making steps forward, and not just highlighting the things that are going wrong, but really highlighting, the things that are going right. And that's my motto. Be so delusional about yourself.
And when you say sort of the idea of delusional, you mean like, because I think I know what you're referring to, the idea of like, especially entrepreneurs, right? They think that what they're creating is the best thing. It's going to make it. It's going to hit. Millions of people are going to want it. It's going to be the best company ever. So you're saying for people to be delusional in the sense of like, know you're great. Like, think that you're amazing. Like, in the most delusional, crazy way possible, right?
Yeah, until your subconscious like aligns with that. It's like, like whatever you got to think, whatever life you have in this moment, you manifested all of that. You created all that, all the positive and all the negative. You've believed in whatever your past self believes in your present right now.
Yeah.
So just think, if all that's possible, anything is, When I was in limbo about my arrest situation, I really had to get to a point that I had to believe that, well, yeah, one, I was going to be okay no matter what mentally, but I wasn't going back in there. And it took a lot of meditation. It took a lot of visualizing, self-hypnosis, and, what I would do every day is I would send love to my attorneys, to the prosecutor, and to the judge. I would send them love every day. And I would thank them. And in my last time that I saw the judge, I had wrote in my letter, I said, thank you for what you do for our country. Because this was a federal court. So, you have to believe in yourself. And I mean, really quick, like on religion, there's a lot of beliefs of what's going to happen to us there's a lot of beliefs in a lot of religions. And in my stance, I don't argue with anyone. I said, whatever you think is going to happen is going to happen. Whatever you believe, that's the truth for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's beautiful in the sense of how you got to where you got to. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of effort. There was a lot of commitment. So it takes that effort to creating something. And the thing that I also want to acknowledge is that there was a lot of emotional work that you had to go through as well. The emotional thanking, being grateful and thanking those your lawyer, the federal judge. I mean, that's a lot of emotional, to be in that kind of emotional state of like, I'm going to be grateful and thank them for their work. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's
another thing with that too, with visualizing. So, I'd get really in a state of like just peace and tranquility and just, and then it's like your subconscious starts to open up. And then now you can introduce programming. you can introduce thoughts and phrases. And when I remember towards the end, so I didn't find out what was going to happen to me right at like a year ago. But I remember around like December, I kind of like I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be attached to an outcome. Whatever happens to me, I'm going to be okay. But like there was this like deep knowing that I'm going to be free. I'm not going to go in there, right?
Yeah.
So I remember one of my last I was visualizing right before I had met with my lawyer. Because when you're in that situation, like you're kind of like, if I don't hear from my lawyer, it's no news is good news, right? And then when I see them calling, I'm like, oh man, like, what do they have for me? So I remember the assistant attorney called me and he says, hey, he wants to see you in his office. Can you come by next week? I said, yeah. So on that weekend, I was visualizing, and I had got so detailed in my visualization that I started crying because I was so happy. And what I had visualized is that the judge was like, okay, yeah, you're good. And I stepped out and I'm hugging my lawyer and my parents and my family, and we're crying because we're so happy that nothing's going to happen to me. And another thing that came is it was right before Christmas, and I visualized my attorney telling me, I have an early Christmas gift for you. And when I went to go see him the next week, he said that word to me. He said those words to me.
Wow.
I have an early Christmas gift for you. You're going to be fine. And then that whole scene with me hugging my lawyers and my family outside of the courtroom, that all happened. So, that whole thing really, it taught me like anything's possible.
Yeah.
Yes, there's the judge and there's your attorney and the prosecutors, and if you go to trial, there's a jury and they're going to decide your fate. But I think there's something even bigger going on in the background that we can't see physically that really pushes energy a certain way, if you believe it.
Yeah, agreed. There's a co-creation, right?
Mm-hmm.
However much we or you or I put into life, I feel like life is willing to be like, all right, let's go. You're ready for this. I see you're willing to step forward.
Mm-hmm.
When they've come across to you, what are some of the things that they first come to you and you're like, it's deeper, baby. It's deeper.
A lot is money blocks.
Okay.
So money blocks, right? And money blocks, the idea that money will get you happier because now you have more freedom to do more things. So a lot of money blocks, procrastination. I really think that chewing nails, weight, and smoking, right? Because it's more of you can actually see that it's working, right? Because if someone stops smoking, then it worked. If they stopped chewing their nails, it worked. You know? So that's really cool, and it makes people a believer, and then they end up coming back and it's like, well, I want to work on this now. It's like, okay, because they see it, they can't believe it. It worked. So a lot of those.
So when they first come to you for money blocks,
Mm-hmm.
what's the deeper, then what is it really about? Usually.
If they believe they deserve it.
So worthiness, deserving. Oh, yeah. That makes sense. Right. Yeah. So they come to you because, hey, I want to make more money.
Mm-hmm.
I have this thing that for some reason, I'm not making money in my life. Mm-hmm. And they come to you and they realize, okay, yes, it could be potentially money blocks, but the idea of having more money in your life isn't really, I know a lot of people that are very wealthy and they're not really happy. So it's not really about the money. It's the underlying of like, cool, are you worthy? Do you deserve a good life? Do you deserve to be happy? XYZ, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because they can take something that happened in their life that maybe they weren't, maybe they haven't forgiven themselves for. And that can turn into relationship blocks as well, right? If we think of other relationships we've been in and maybe this one didn't work out and you think, well, was it because of who I was in prior relationships? Am I now dealt this card? So it's about what you think you deserve. And are you worthy? That sense of self, it's we get in our own way.
Yeah.
We try to find out things in the outside of, why things aren't working out for us, but it's always about, how we look at life and how we talk to ourselves.
Yeah, that's been a big journey for me. I do a lot of journaling. I like to journal, and I think the theme that I've noticed come sort of like ebb and flow through my journaling is that idea of when I'm writing, what am I saying to myself? And there are moments where I'm talking really down at myself, like not happy about what I've created or not happy about the thing that I did today.
Mm-hmm.
And then noticing that there's themes where I'm like, good job, I'm proud of you, good job, way to go. Like, so it's really important to recognize, like, to one, become aware,
Mm-hmm.
right, of like, hey, how am I talking to myself?
Mm-hmm.
And then two, what do you do about it? To whether it's hypnotherapy or another modality that's out there, so that you can support yourself, so you're not continuing that sort of like hamster wheel of putting yourself down, talking down to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and finding a new way, whether it's a better word or a better affirmation or a way to be compassionate with yourself for the thing that you did that
Right.
you weren't so happy about, and to find a better way to be a better person to yourself.
Yeah. And then from there, when you start with yourself, then that really benefits other people around you. I mean, if you can't find how to love yourself, you really can't love others.
Right.
Journaling is really important, and it's good to write everything down, the good and ugly. Sometimes you can go back and look and you can see your progress. You're like, wow, I used to really, talk to myself like this, but it's important to write it all down. When you say it out loud to maybe a person, people don't always say everything because they don't want to sound crazy. But, when you write it down and it's only you and the pen and paper and only you are going to read it, just write everything down that you feel. That's a good way to get your emotions out. You have to do something. When you're stuck, you have to do something about it. Go read, go for a walk, a run, go to the gym, journal. You have to, when you hold on to an emotion, especially anger, it could really fester and create other problems for you in your body. So,
Yeah. So I know that there's been moments where I have written something or journaled, and I have felt a bit of fear in if someone's going to read it. So this is for you guys out there, for the guys who might be afraid. What I would recommend, if there's something that you want to write and you're afraid somebody might read it, burn it. Like, allow yourself to fully express exactly what Paulo's saying. Like, it's so important to express this, like, let it out so you're not holding on to it. Write it down on a piece of paper and then tear it up or burn it. So this way you're not worried if somebody else might pick it up and read, like, oh my God, what did you write? Like, just express it and let it go.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It's how you respond. That's why you also do practices of mindfulness and meditation, because I don't know how many times, something will trigger me, and I have to go take a break in a bathroom and just stare at myself and say, hey, like, if you're feeling like taking action, where is it coming from? Is it coming from peace or is it coming from an emotion? Because 10 minutes ago, you weren't willing to do that, right? You didn't want to punch the wall, right? So you know that if you decide whether you want to do something, where is it coming from? Is it coming from emotion or is it coming from a place of peace?
I love that. Is it coming from emotion?
Or coming from a place of peace?
So emotion meaning, because peace isn't, do you consider peace as emotion itself?
Calm.
Calm. So let's say the one side would be an emotion of anger, frustration, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other side would be peace, calm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, this is amazing. I could talk about this stuff all day. It's so good. So shall we sort of lead you towards speaking about sort of like what the exercise is that you want to offer right now?
Yeah, it's going to be like around 15-minute meditation.
Okay. Well, give us a little bit about like, what is it about? Like, how does it like, yeah, tell us a little bit about it so the audience can sort of like.
Well, I did a script for it and I kind of wanted to tailor it a little towards like your audience, the men's mental health, and kind of like what we were talking about earlier of, men are like, can be like an egg, right? Like a hard round surface. But if you, get it to crack a little bit, they'll really open up.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for even, women to know, like, if you're able to create a safe space for, the men in your life, if you keep digging, they'll open up to you. They just have to feel safe. I mean, I think maybe it requires men to feel even more safe, right? And say, well, she's not going to judge me for crying, or she's going to still think that I'm her strong, tough guy, if I tell her how, when I lost my dog at 10 years old, so my goal is to create a safe space for men, and not just can I be it for them, but for themselves, really. So, yeah, it's hopefully, on their own, they can listen to it. And, if this is a recording, listen to it daily. My recommendation, whenever I do a hypnosis session, so I can tell you a little bit how I run a hypnosis session.
Yeah, great.
So usually it takes around 2 hours fully. It's gone as far as 3, and it's gone as less as an hour and a half. But in the first part of it, I ask them kind of like, what is your history, with mental health, any other health complications you have? Have you ever seen a therapist? Just like a basic questionnaire. And then the second part is, in the first part, I want to know, what did you come and see me for? And then the second part is, okay, so what does your life look like if that wasn't an issue anymore? And so I asked them questions. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? Like, let's get all the senses, and what does that look like for you? And then I make a recording for them and I send it to them using their language off of the questions I asked them. And then I say, listen to this for 2 weeks. And I always recommend, if you're going to listen to a meditation, try to do it right when you wake up or right before you go to sleep, because our brain is easier to get in a theta state. And the theta state is the hypnosis state. That's where your brain waves are like, okay, I can receive programming. And if on the scientific level, up until we're 7 years old, kids are in theta state. That's why they're sponges, right? That's why they're all the things that that create habits later in life, they're learning in that time. So yeah, listen for it for at least 2 weeks so that now it becomes a pattern, and then you can go back to it whenever you think you need it.
Great. So we'll have you go ahead and now do the exercise.
Sure.
The hypnosis. Yeah, the hypnosis.
Okay. Before we begin, if you're driving or operating machinery, just listen. Listen to the words without closing your eyes. If you're in a safe place, allow your eyes to gently close. Take a deep breath in through the nose and exhale through the mouth. Again, breathe in and then out. There's nothing you need to fix right now. Nothing to figure out. This is simply a moment to stand down from the fight. Notice the weight of your body, the points of contact where you're supported, the chair, the floor, the ground beneath you. You don't have to hold yourself up right now. You're already supported. As you breathe, imagine each exhale releasing pressure. Pressure, the kind of pressure that comes from always being on, always carrying, always pushing. Loosen that jaw and drop those shoulders. Soften your chest. You're not losing any strength by just relaxing. You're recovering it. Now, bring your attention to the top of your head. Imagine a wave of calm beginning there, slowly moving downward across the forehead, behind the eyes, down the back of the neck. Notice any tension or tightness. Don't fight it. Just acknowledge it and let the wave move through anyway. Down into the shoulders, the arms, the hands, down into your fingers. Let the wave move through the chest, the stomach, the lower back. If emotions surface, that's okay. You don't have to label them. You don't have to explain them. Just let them pass through like weather. Now relax through the hips, the legs, all through the feet, and down through your toes. Your body knows how to relax. You're just giving it permission. Now, in a moment, I'm going to have you relax more completely. You're going to hear a countdown from 10 to 1. The moment I say number 10, You will allow your eyelids to remain closed. The moment I say the number 10, you will, in your mind's eye, see yourself at the top of a set of beautiful stairs. The moment I say the number 9 and each additional number, you will simply move down those stairs, relaxing more completely. At the base of the stairs is a large feathered bed with a comfortable feathered pillow. The moment I say number 1, you will simply stick into bed, resting your head on that feathered pillow. Number 10, eyes closed at the top of those stairs. Relaxing and letting go. 9, sinking into a more comfortable, calm, peaceful position. 7, going way down. 6, moving down those stairs, relaxing more completely. 4, go ahead and breathe in deeply. 3, on the next number, simply sinking into that bed, becoming more calm, more relaxed, more peaceful. 2, sinking into that feather bed, let every muscle go limp and loose as you sink into a more peaceful state. 1. Now, I want you to imagine a version of yourself standing in front of you. Not a perfect version, a real one. This is you when you're calm, clear, steady. Notice how this version carries himself. Your posture, your breathing, your eyes. This version doesn't suppress emotion. He understands it. He knows that strength isn't about never breaking. It's about knowing how to recover. And as you look at him, you realize something important. You don't need to become him. You are already him. Just buried under noise, stress, and old survival patterns. Now imagine stepping into that version of yourself. Feel what it's like to breathe from that place, to think from that place, to respond instead of reacting. And from now on, when pressure builds, your nervous system remembers this state. The calm becomes accessible. The clarity becomes available. Strength feels steady instead of forced. You don't need anger to feel powerful. You don't need numbness to feel safe. You are allowed to feel and remain in control. your mind learns that rest is productive, that calm sharpens you, that emotional awareness is an asset, and every day it becomes easier to pause, to choose your response, to choose yourself, to trust yourself. Now gently place your attention on your breath again. Anytime you take a slow breath in through the nose and release it through the mouth, your body remembers this state. Calm strength, grounded focus, inner control. This becomes your reset button. In a moment, I'll count from 1 to 5. And at 5, you will return fully awake, clear-headed, present, and steady. 1. Feel that body again. 2. Bring awareness back to the room. 3. Gentle movement in the fingers and toes. 4. A deep, refreshing breath. And 5. Eyes open when ready. How you feel?
Wow. That was I was totally deep in there.
Yeah.
That was great.
That's great.
Yeah, that was powerful, man. Thank you.
Of course, my pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely notice the repetitive thought of like calm and grounded. And there's a few others that I can't think about right now, which I think is really cool because it's in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's downloaded.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
I think there's so much information coming at us that it's important, there's so much on social media. And if you're doing things like this, you don't always have to remember, just know that it's being downloaded. And when you need it, it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I think, that's sort of, because I know some people who they take information in and they're able to like share it and express it so easily, right? Like one of my friends, like he'll take information in and then he's able to like reteach somebody like in a very linear way. And I can't do that. Like, I'm like what you said, I take information in and it's in there, but I can't reteach somebody. Like I know how to have a conversation about it, but if you were to tell me like, okay, linearly, like how did you come to that? I can't do that. So it's really fascinating to me where it's like, some people can do that.
Yeah. I love this work. I love, since a young kid, I've always was interested in psychology. Yeah. Like, if people really know me, they know I love like watching crime documentaries because I'm always like interested. How do people think? What makes them tick? What makes So, yeah, I love it. And when you start understanding yourself more, you really start understanding other people.
Yeah, you popped a movie recommendation for you and those out there. Killing Eve. It's on Netflix.
Oh, really?
And it's 4 seasons, and it's just, I feel so, like, there's moments where I cried for the main character. But it's just a really powerful sentiment of human emotion, human connection, wanting to feel connected, and the psyche of human beings. So really, really cool.
Yeah.
So thanks for being on.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. This was phenomenal. I hope you liked the exercise out there. And let us know if there's, what else are you guys curious about? Like, I want to know what you guys are curious about so I can bring people on that can offer those exercises for you guys. So let me know who comes on. Paulo, tell us what are you offering? What are you offering right now?
Sure. You can find me on paulososa.com, also on my Instagram and YouTube. Right now, I offer one-on-one sessions. So by any of those ways, you can hit me a DM, and we'll schedule first a, kind of like what do you want to work on, and then we can schedule from there a one-on-one session.
And these are all on Zoom.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Through
Great.
Zoom. Yeah. Yeah. Which is great. I mean, wherever you're at, we can link up and we can work on whatever you want. Yeah.
Sweet. Perfect. Specifically, I think you work with men and women. It's not just men.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So men and women, and I think that you're excited about like supporting people around confidence and like worthiness stuff, like really tapping into that sense of who they are. And so if you are not sure if you're worthy or not, just give Paulo a chat. Just give him a reach out, So great exercise. And if you want more, we're going to have Paulo come into the community, the men's community, and give you guys a deeper exercise, something a little more in-depth and a little longer than this sort of teaser that we did, and Q&A. So if you guys have any questions for him as to like, how does this work? Like, just so you can like pick his brain. So any final remarks before we sort of bow out?
Yeah. I mean, if, I can be any help, I'm glad to. If I, am just like the introduction to this sort of working with the subconscious mind, then I did my job. And yeah, I mean, just men, remember to always take care of yourself. I know you have a lot on your plate, a lot of responsibility, but you deserve peace and happiness. So
good words.
Thanks for having me.
You got it, Paulo. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
See ya.